Welcome to the Real Faith Podcast with me, your host, Chris Goins, a podcast featuring real talk with real people about God, theology, and life. Our goal, authentic, vulnerable, and raw conversations on a variety of topics with a view towards looking at what God's Word has to say. These conversations will help you apply your faith in God's Word to the real challenges of life. With that, let's jump into today's episode. Thanks so much for joining us for the Real Faith Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I want to ask you to do something for us. I'd love for you to subscribe today. When you subscribe and when you share, you actually make our podcast more visible, and our desire is really to add value to people. So subscribe today, share this episode with your friends. I am joined today by my friend and colleague, Zach Walker. Zach, awesome to have you in the house.
Hi, thanks so much for having me back, Chris.
As always, it's cool to have our producer, Chris Miller, in the house. Chris, thanks to you for being along. We're glad you're here. Hey, we're going to jump back into a topic today, and it's actually a topic that makes a lot of people really, really uncomfortable. But Zach, I am convinced that this is a critically important topic, and as you and I covered it 2 weeks ago, we discussed then this needs a deeper dive, and today it's going to get that deeper dive. It's actually going to be part one of a two-part series. Next week, I'll be joined by special guest Dr. Deanna Paulk, and we'll talk about mental and emotional health in a COVID-19 world. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. Make sure you join us next week. But today, Zach and I are going to continue the discussion we began 2 weeks ago on physical health in a COVID-19 world. And Zach, I think this topic is essential for people of faith.
I agree. I think it's very essential. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, our physical health, I think, is directly correlated to our spiritual health, our emotional health, our relational health. And just want to caveat at the beginning of this podcast for our listeners, especially if you're not watching on YouTube and you can't see us, you and I are by no means, fitness experts or even health experts.
Especially me.
But it is something that we're both very passionate about. And I know that basically on a weekly basis, we spend time talking about this topic with one another. And so I'm excited to sort of give our listeners an inside peek into some of the conversations that I think you and I pretty much have on a regular basis anyway.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important right now, especially with the lockdown and everything. WebMD recently released an article that said that life in lockdown has disrupted all of our lives, creating the perfect setup for putting on pounds. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us can say amen to that. Right. Another doctor is cited as in saying this as a response to COVID-19. Staying indoors means most people are less active, and many are eating more ultra-processed foods. Add to that the anxiety that comes with a deadly pandemic, and you've got an ideal situation for weight gain. And there's a lot of other stats that I could read that just tell us how out of shape we are, Pastor Chris. But, as to not completely discourage us all at the beginning of this, I just think that this kind of brings to our minds the importance and the reality of how this is affecting us. And I know it's something that you think is really important too.
Yeah, depending on which study you read, Zach, at a minimum, 22% of Americans indicate that they put on weight during COVID-19. Mm-hmm. At a minimum. And there are a variety of reasons. Part of it is stress eating. When we are anxious, we tend to eat as a way to reduce stress. Another big reason, and this is really critical that we talk about this, is alcohol use. Mm-hmm. When lockdown began, alcoholic sales increased overnight 55%.
Wow.
That is phenomenal. And a lot of alcohol is filled with empty calories. Mm-hmm. And all alcohol lowers our inhibitions. When it does that, we're more prone to make really, really unwise decisions. And it's led to these problems. Now, someone may say, well, what's a few pounds here or there? Mm-hmm. What really does it matter? Let me Let me try to explain why it matters, Zach, why this is so important. The consequences of being overweight, obesity, increased risk for type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, increased risk for mental health issues, heart disease, increased risk for stroke, increased risk for several types of cancer, and get this is most important, premature death. It causes about 1 in 5 deaths in the U.S. every year. It's now the leading cause of preventable death and life years lost in the U.S. Get this. This is amazing to me. Now, right now, somewhere around, and all of these lives are precious, somewhere around 135,000 lives have been lost as a result of COVID-19. That's staggering. 135,000 lives every year in America. The issue of what we eat and unhealthy diet contributes to at least 678,000 deaths. That is phenomenal. So us talking about this is a matter of stewardship, and it's really, really important. Let me share with you a bit of my journey. I was raised in a really Southern home. When I say Southern, I mean this Southern. Every morning, Monday through Saturday, my mother fixed gravy, biscuits, and bacon for breakfast.
Oh, man.
Every morning, Monday through Saturday.
Wow.
The only day we did not have gravy, biscuits, and bacon was if my mother was sick or if it was a Sunday.
Sure.
Sunday was a church day, and that was reserved for lunch.
Wow.
But that's the diet I grew up on, which if you know anything about good Southern gravy, my mother was the queen of homemade biscuits. Oh, my gosh. She was amazing at homemade biscuits. There's not another biscuit like hers on the planet. And of course, bacon is a staple. It makes everything better.
Absolutely.
That was my diet. I graduated high school at about 140 pounds, soaking wet, just this stick of a kid.
Yeah.
I then, not many months later, became an itinerant speaker right out of high school.
Yeah.
God bless the people who had to listen to me speak at that point. God bless the people who still listen to me speak. At the high point of that itinerant speaking career, I was speaking about 300 nights a year. Now, if you've never done that, if you've never been on the road 300 nights a year, Chris Miller is very acquainted with living on the road.
Yeah.
You need to know this. I did not eat until after I spoke, which usually meant I was eating a full meal at somewhere around 10 o'clock every evening. And we're talking good old, usually Southern meals. And in a very quick amount of time, I put on a ton of weight. When my wife became pregnant with Chelsea, all of a sudden I started to wake up to this reality. Oh my gosh, I've really put on a lot of weight, and this could create health problems. And I really owe it to my baby daughter to be able to keep up with her. My wife had this amazing metabolism in those early years of marriage. It didn't matter what she ate. In the early years of marriage, she was 105 pounds soaking wet. I mean, she was just so small. And in fact, after she had Chelsea 1 week later, she was back in like those size 2 pants that she wore before. I'm serious, like 1 week later.
Wow.
It was incredible. That wasn't my experience.
Yeah.
So I thought after Chelsea's birth, I need to begin a process of getting into shape. I didn't. I procrastinated. Then I became a pastor. And I started teaching the same group of people week in, week out. And I was teaching them passages like Galatians 5, 22, 23, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and remember the last fruit?
Yeah, self-control.
Self-control. And I would teach stuff like that, and I would look at me, and I lacked self-control so much. In fact, Zach, this is not hyperbole. Because of all those years being an itinerant speaker, being raised in a good old Southern home where my mama knew how to cook, one of my habits every night still at that point,
Sure.
with a baby daughter. We would get Mayfield's vanilla ice cream. And almost nightly, I would fix myself a homemade milkshake. And if I didn't fix a milkshake, I would just fix myself a bowl of vanilla ice cream, take some Hershey's
Oh, yes.
chocolate, pour it over the top of that.
Yeah.
I was not in shape.
Sure.
One of my friends, a fellow pastor, he went on a prolonged fast. And he lost a ton of weight, and I went on that fast with him. And it was during that fast that I became very convicted about the fact that I was teaching people one thing.
Sure.
Fruit of the Spirit is self-control. I was not living that in my personal life. I was mastered by sugar. I was mastered by a number of things that I was eating, and I wasn't being the best representative of Jesus that I knew I could be. So in my early 20s, about 23, 24, I decided I've got to make a change.
Sure.
And it began with my diet, and a few years later, exercise in the early 90s became a big part of that. And it has continued to be for these whatever number of years that is now, almost 30. Well, when it comes to exercise, almost 30. When it goes back to diet, way back then in the mid to late 80s. So this is really, really important to me. And I have viewed it, Zach, as a matter of conviction.
Yeah.
That this is a part of the way I represent Christ to the world. I don't think I need to look like whatever the icon is right now.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not up to date on the icons. So whatever the Hemsworth guy is, that is Thor. Whatever the dude is that plays Captain America, I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah.
For my generation, it's Tom Cruise, who even at my age is still in perfect shape. My goal has never been to look like those guys. That's impossible. It's not what I make a living doing, as they make a living doing. My goal has been to honor God with the body He's given me. I view it like this. My body is a gift from God. What I do with it is the gift I give back to Him. And I just want to be honorable when it comes to this.
A lot of good stuff there. And I think you've nailed it just right off the top of how do we ingrain this into our everyday lives so that it becomes really a part of who we are. Because I mean, I think that all of us can relate to making those New Year's resolutions where, we say, oh, I want to lose however many pounds, or I want to, look like this person, or I'm going to start going to the gym. And, a few weeks or maybe a few months, if we're lucky, after that, we kind of find ourselves settled back into our same routines, and we just don't get happy with where we are. And I think that, in large, it boils down to, like you said, like we have to have that underlining conviction. And whether that's a spiritual conviction or a moral conviction or just something that's in you that says, I want to be different. There has to be something that guides you to actually let there be behavior that flows out of your identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so today, we're going to be talking about some biblical principles to guide our thoughts, and we're going to give you some practical takeaways. And again, Chris and I, we're not experts on these things, but hopefully that helps you kind of know that this is attainable. I mean, this is not something that you have to have any certifications on or anything like that. When I first started working out, for me, it was a lot of the same thing that you shared. I mean, it was a conviction of just wanting to be in good shape, to just be a healthy person. And I've kind of always envisioned, if the Lord wills and gives my wife Shelby and I children one day, that, I'm just going to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do for, a long time because I'm in good shape. And I tell Shelby, all the time, and we're in our 20s right now, and I just say, hey, babe, like right now we have to think in terms of we're living for our 70s. And I just think that kind of long-term thinking is really helpful when it comes to our physical health, because it's so easy to eat like a bag of Doritos or to eat that ice cream or whatever when you don't consider the long-term impact of that.
Yeah.
And even just to think, oh, well, one bowl of ice cream, that's not going to hurt me. That's true. One bowl of ice cream won't. But what is one bowl of ice cream going to lead to?
Well, for me, it was one bowl of ice cream every night.
Exactly. I mean, a routine. Like, because it's hard to buy just single serve and anyway. And so it's like, man, I'm going to eat that whole half gallon by the end of the week. And it was so good, I'm going to do it next week. And next thing you know, you're one of these statistics that we've talked about. And so let's talk about some biblical principles that just kind of guide our thoughts on the matter of physical health. And the first one is, Chris, my body is a gift from God. Anything you want to touch there?
Hey, we didn't make that up, Zach.
Sure.
That comes right out of Paul's teaching, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, where he said this, don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God, so you do not belong to yourself. God bought you with a high price, so you must honor God with your body.
Yeah.
I mean, your body really is a gift from God.
Absolutely.
And the second principle is this: what I do with my body is the gift I give back to Him. And once again, Paul's teaching in Corinthians is this, 1 Corinthians 6:13. You know the old saying, first you eat to live, and then you live to eat. Well, it may be true that your body is only a temporary thing, but that's no excuse for stuffing your body with food or indulging it with some form of extramarital sex. Since the master honors you with a body, here's Paul's challenge. You honor him with your body. And what Paul is saying there, Zach, is this, and this is hard-hitting truth, and it's the truth we do not like to talk about as Christians. It's this truth: God made my body. Jesus actually died for my body. The Holy Spirit lives in my body. If all of that's true, I should manage my body. I should manage this house, my body, as a house, so that when somebody looks at this house and says, who lives in that house? I can say God, and God will be glorified with that answer.
Yeah, I love that biblical perspective on it, because again, like you said, it's a lot bigger than just the vain desire to look good. And like making our bodies a gift back to God doesn't mean that we have to have a nicely shaped six-pack abs or, huge lats or whatever other desirable feature you would want. Like so what I think of is in 1 Kings, when Solomon builds the temple for God, and just how amazing it is. There hasn't been a temple like it. There probably hasn't even been a piece of architecture like it since. And then now we have the scripture in the New Testament that tells us that our body is a temple for God. And I think that there's a lot of things that we can do, just like there's a lot of things that Solomon did in order to build this amazing temple for the Lord.
Zach, in terms of six packs, I've been working since the 90s. I don't have that.
Yeah.
I would love to have it.
Yes.
Let me explain my pursuit in fitness like this.
Yeah.
There are some choices you make that will lead to freedom. And there are other choices you make that lead to slavery. I don't want to make choices that lead to my slavery. This is, again, out of a teaching from Paul when he says this: you may say, I'm allowed to do anything. All things, some translations, are permissible. But not everything, he writes, is actually beneficial or good for you. So because we've been bought with a price, we need to ask ourselves questions like this when it comes to what we're eating, what we're consuming. By the way, Zach, this even applies to what we put into our mind.
Absolutely.
We need to ask ourselves questions like this: is this helpful to me? Is it helpful to the people I love? Will this choice lead to my freedom? Or will this choice lead to my slavery?
Sure.
And there are loads of people every day signing up for slavery by the choices they make. A few years ago, Janet and I, we became grandparents. And then last year, we became grandparents for the second time.
Yeah.
So we just went on vacation with a 3+-year-old and an 8-month-old. And if you haven't kept up with a 3-year-old recently, let me just say they're nonstop motion. And the 8-month-old, because she wants to be like the 3-year-old, when she's awake, she's nonstop motion. This is one of the reasons for my pursuit. One of the reasons. The first one, I want to honor God. But another reason is this. I never want to have to say no to anything I want to do because of choices that have limited my ability.
Yeah.
Where I signed up for slavery instead of freedom.
Yeah, that's good.
So hanging out with Jack for that week, I was able to run. I was able to swim. I was able to hang out with him. Now, I will be honest. At the end of the day, I was ready to go to bed.
Sure.
But during the day, we had a blast.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's why we want to do these things.
I completely agree. And, just an example from my own life, my father-in-law, Bob, he has a grandson named Landon, and Landon is 7 years old, and Bob is in his upper 60s. And Bob, when he was my age and in his 30s, and we talk about it all the time. I mean, he would go running, and he was just running all over Birmingham. I just love talking with him so much and all of his stories. But he took care of his body.
Yeah.
And he's always watched what he eats, and he's always stayed in the gym and has exercised, and now he's reaping the rewards of those decisions from his 20s and 30s to where now he's in his 60s and he's able to enjoy a very fun life keeping up and with his 7-year-old grandson, and they're out at Veterans Park and they're out hiking and they're out just doing all sorts of these fun things together. And so I love that. One of the goals of physical fitness is to be fit enough so that you don't have to say no to anything that you want to do.
And Zach, one of the important things for people in our podcast audience to remember is this: you're never too young and you're never too old to start this journey.
That's good.
Just a few anecdotes here. 2016, Ed Whitlock became the oldest person to complete a marathon under 4 hours. I want to say that again, under 4 hours. Now, there have been those who were older to complete a marathon, but he did it in 3 hours, 56 minutes, 34 seconds. By the way, Ed was only 85 years old when he did that.
That's incredible.
Is that amazing?
That's unbelievable. I mean, that pace, and I've just recently started making running, something that I try to do on a regular basis, and I would love to run a marathon one day. I haven't even come close, and in order for a 35-year-old or under to qualify for Boston Marathon, they have to run that pace.
Wow.
So the fact that he ran that pace at the age of 85,
it's amazing.
I can't wrap my head around that.
And by the way, you can read about his journey, look him up, and he is baffling scientists with that ability, that stamina, that endurance, and that speed.
Sure.
So it's crazy. George Hood earlier this year, George Hood, 62-year-old man, former Marine, a retired DEA agent. He spent several months training 7 hours a day, including 1,500 sit-ups a day, to break the male world record for longest time in the abdominal plank position. He held a plank, and you know what that is.
Sure.
He held a plank for, get this, 8 hours, 15 minutes, 15 seconds. The dude's 62 years old.
That's unbelievable.
It's phenomenal.
You have a few years to hit that pace, Pastor Chris.
I don't think I will ever reach that status.
My arms start shaking doing a plank after like 2 minutes.
I mean,
I'm lucky to get to 2 minutes.
I do a plank about twice a week in one of the routines I do, and I'm like you, at like a minute and a half.
Oh, I'm shivering.
I feel it. Yeah. But there are all kinds of stories. Today, I spent about 20 minutes on the phone with a guy who used to be part of my small group. Mm-hmm. He's not in small group right now, but he's a wonderful guy.
Sure.
And in December of 2019, he looked in the mirror, and he had been through a really tough time in his career, also lived through the collapse of a marriage that had really worked on him. And out of the context of both the difficulties and challenges in his career and a difficult relationship, he had just been binge eating, stress eating. And when he looked in the mirror, he saw a 5'11", 280-pound guy looking back. And he thought, I don't want this. Now, he had pursued physical fitness in the past, but according to him, he had always pursued it for what others might think.
Sure.
But when he looked in the mirror in December, he's got a young son, and he decided to make changes for him.
That's good.
And for the legacy he wanted to leave his child.
I love that.
So he began with a diet. He actually knew, hey, while I've got this internal motivation, I probably need some external motivation. So I'd never heard of this before, but he actually entered into an agreement with something called healthywage.com.
Okay.
And basically what you do is you agree to give a certain amount. His total investment was about $600.
Wow.
Now, they don't give you fitness tips or any of this.
Yeah.
But
Did he pay that up front?
No, he paid it by the month.
Gotcha.
And he'll be in for $600 by the end of it. But if he meets his goals, he will cash out with $1,900.
Wow.
And he said, now at this point, I'm so driven by not losing my $600.
Yes.
Cashing out with an extra $1,300 that I'm really in it to win it.
I love that.
What's amazing is this. He told me he didn't begin with exercise. He just began with diet. But you did an active in April challenge.
Yeah, right in the middle of quarantine when things were thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He entered the active in April challenge. It motivated him to add exercise. So he began exercising
I remember that.
rather regularly.
Yeah.
He had signed his son up for Taekwondo.
Cool.
And his son really loved Taekwondo. And he noticed the amazing mental alertness in his son that was resulting from Taekwondo. And he thought, I wonder what that would be like for me.
Wow.
And he told his son again and again, one day I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Well, recently when gyms started to open back up, he signed up for Taekwondo and he said, oh my gosh, it's been amazing.
That's cool.
I love it. It's something now me and my young son,
that's awesome.
We can share stories about.
Yeah.
At this point in July, he told me as of today, 280 pounds, he's down 57 pounds.
Come on.
I think that means he's at 223.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He said he's began meeting with a physical fitness coach.
Wow.
And they've set a new goal that by the end of this year, he will hit 191 pounds.
Come on. That is so
crazy?
awesome. Yes.
And here's what he said to me. He said, what's crazy is what's happening to me mentally. He said, mentally, I'm more alert.
Yep.
I'm more clear in my thinking. I'm more in the game. I'm more with it in my career than I've ever been. Emotionally, he said, I sense more stability in my life. He said, spiritually, my life had been marked by huge highs and dramatic lows, but I've sort of found this pace in life where the highs may not be as high, but the lows aren't nearly as low. He said, obviously, I want the highs to be higher, but what I love is there's a sense of stability in my life. And by the way, he even said I could share his name. His name is Patrick Ray. He's here in the Birmingham area.
Shout out.
Yeah. And Patrick said, hey, if people want to reach out to me,
that's cool.
I would love to share my journey because it's really been life-changing. All that it's brought into my life, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Oh my gosh, what an incredible story! And I mean, I know Patrick, and Patrick is such a cool guy, and it's just so cool to see how he's glorifying God in all of these results. And you know, one of the things I love from his story, and I didn't know this until you shared it with me just now, but about him like putting some money into it, you know, and what was the thing called again?
Healthy Wage.
Healthy Wage. I mean, if you're interested in that, maybe look into it. I've never heard of it, but something that, you know, people have come up to me and they'll say, Zach, you know, I want to start working out. Can you help me, etc. And one of the things, like depending on the person's physical goals, if they have an interest in like joining a gym, I always tell them like put some skin in the game. I mean, if you're, for instance, if you want to be in the gym, but you don't have a gym membership, just any membership is going to be better now because that could be $10, $20 a month, whatever. That commitment's going to help you. If you are at Planet Fitness or at, one of these 24Es or something like that, that's a little bit on the cheaper side, upgrade, like even put $50, $60. And if that's still not working for you, I mean, spend upwards of $100 or more per month, because it's absolutely worth it. And I think that accountability, now, if you're not going and if you're spending $100 a month, then you need to cancel. But I mean, I do think that that's a really cool thing, and just a testimony to how our physical health, I mean, sure, there's going to be the visible benefits, but probably more importantly, there's a lot of other benefits that are associated with it. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how we can make this practical.
Yeah.
Because in theory, we all want to be healthier.
Yeah.
And we've all tried. We've probably all failed, if we were being honest. And so how can we help people actually put this into practice, especially during COVID-19? So we're going to talk about 3, maybe up to 5 if we have time, things that you can do to make this practical. And the first one, Chris, is to eat healthy.
Yeah. Eat things that fuel your body and mind for excellence. I don't think this has to be complicated, Zach. In fact, one of the advantages of 2 novices, neither of us are health fitness experts. Neither of us have any kind of degrees or certifications in these areas. But one of the good things about that is this: we don't have to make it complex. Yeah. I mean, the old adage is true: garbage in, garbage out.
Sure.
And if you're attempting to fuel your body, fuel your mind with heavily processed foods, sodas, sweet teas, loads of sugar, your body is not going to function the way God designed your body to function. And I think there's some basic things we can do. Eat smaller portions. Eat smaller portions. Drink lots of water. Avoid soft drinks. Now, Zach, I've got stories that I can share there about avoiding soft drinks, but this is amazing. A few years ago, my wife has done this several times. She's done the Whole30.
Sure.
And she challenged me to do the Whole30, and I had done it with her before with caveats. There were a few things that I would not give up. I would not give up my artificial sweeteners, and I would not give up my diet sodas. I said, hey, I'm already giving up so much. Why do I have to give this up? She said, Chris, for the first time, do the Whole30 full scale.
Yeah.
Give up artificial sweeteners. So we did the Whole30 for not 30 days, but we actually got into such a rhythm and we were feeling so good that we did it for 90 days.
That's cool.
Until we had this scheduled vacation that we went on, 90 days.
Wow.
Somewhere around 45 to 50 days in, at that point in my life, I was suffering from plantar fasciitis. If you know of anyone who's ever had that, if you've had it, you know that the pain can be excruciating. For instance, it causes severe pain in your feet. So when I would get up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, when you put your feet on the floor, I can't even explain the pain. I actually had socks that would keep my feet into some kind of position. I had inserts in my shoes to lessen the pain in my feet. Somewhere around day 45, 50, the pain was subsiding. So much so that one day I went back to my Converse. I hadn't worn my Converse in forever.
Sure.
And I came to my wife and said, oh my gosh, I believe God has healed me. God's healed me of plantar fasciitis. And she said, well, the Lord may have healed you, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Or she said, you've eliminated artificial sweeteners and diet sodas from your life. All of those toxins have left your body. The inflammation that was creating that plantar fasciitis has subsided, and God used that to heal your body.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you're not so smart, woman. Go back somewhere.
Who said you could say that to me?
Here's what I'm saying. It's amazing to me. Now, occasionally I'll reward myself with a Diet Coke. We were on vacation last week. I drunk a Diet Coke that's like one of these 32-ounce big gulch things. It was so delicious.
Yes.
But normally my drink of choice is water. I'm amazed. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, learn to eat. Here's a third thought. Learn to eat wise, sensible, healthy choices when it comes to food. There's some people who think a balanced diet is having a burger in both hands. I mean, hey, my favorite food is a great hamburger.
Sure.
But here's what I've learned even with that, Zach. I can make a hamburger healthy by eliminating a bun. I mean, it's actually great.
Yeah.
Substitute healthy snacks for junk food garbage. And I would say one of the big things that would greatly improve your health when it comes to diet, eliminate added sugar. Added sugar is signing up for slavery. In fact, there is some research, and you can watch this. There are several documentaries that document this. There's some evidence that added sugar works like gasoline for cancer cells.
Wow.
Eliminate added sugar.
Yeah.
So those would be my thoughts. You may have more to add there when it comes to eating healthy.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, eating healthy is, I mean, of the things that we're going to talk about today, it's where I struggle the most. Eating is very difficult. Like, eating healthy is very difficult for me. And I mean, again, it goes back to what we talked about at the start of the show with one of the fruits of the spirit being self-control. And I mean, I grew up drinking a lot of sodas, so I enjoy drinking soda. And I mean, I enjoy sweet things. And I think one of the kickbacks of working out a lot is then you can make the excuse of, oh, well, I mean, I ran today, so I can eat this cookie. All right, well, maybe, but you know, I am like limiting some results there. But I mean, you've nailed it. Like, I can tell such a difference in my body when I go extended periods of time without putting in like things that I know aren't healthy for me, as far as just the way that I feel mentally, but also the way that I feel. Like, it just causes my body just to feel sluggish. And I can identify that because I've gone extended periods of time without having unhealthy foods in me. And so I can just tell like a very noticeable difference in the way that I am. And so I know that that's something that I can definitely get better at is the eating part of it for sure. But the second thing, exercise consistently.
Yeah, exercise to improve your flexibility, mobility, stamina, and strength. Zach, it's critical for me to stay. You don't have to be a gym rat.
That's exactly right.
I mean, you can look at me, and it's not as if you're ever going to mistake me for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or let's talk about Super Pastor Craig Rochelle, who looks like he just stepped out of GQ or something. I mean, the dude's amazing. But here's what I will say to you. I went through a struggle years ago with depression. Now, at that time, exercise was already a regular part of my life. I credit several things. Exercise is not the only thing, but one of the reasons, there's several, one of the reasons I am really all in when it comes to exercise, and it's practically 7 days a week for me.
Sure.
Is because I know what it does to this and to this. Let me just say this. This doesn't mean when we talk about exercise that people need to go out, purchase expensive equipment, join a really expensive gym. There's lots of research that indicates that you can improve the quality of your life by as little as a half hour of exercise most days a week, which can be as simple as a 30-minute walk. In fact, there's one medical doctor. I'm going to give you his quote.
Okay.
I'm going to slightly edit it. He writes, a good exercise prescription for the millions of mostly sedentary and unfit Americans is turn off the television, get up off your butt. He uses another really good word. Beep. Yeah. It's a good one. I wish I could say it. Get up off your butt, go out the door, and move around a bit. We've learned, he writes from research, that it often doesn't matter what you do. Any activity that increases your metabolic rate and burns more calories provides benefits. I think, Zach, you can make exercise really, really simple. And I believe you'll be amazed. And when I say you, I know you know these benefits, but you'll be amazed when you make it a regular and routine part of your life, what it does for your overall mental attitude, acuity, clarity, a variety of things. I think you'll even see the impact spiritually.
I completely agree. And one of the interesting things that I've kind of thought about throughout this whole lockdown with COVID is that the lockdown has both provided all of us with the opportunity to do things that we've never really had the opportunity to do prior to us being locked down, while also providing an excuse to not do anything.
Yeah.
Like the very thing that gives us the opportunity to do more is also the thing that we can use as an excuse to not do anything.
Great word.
And so, and just what made me think about that is that whole television thing. And that's something too that I'm just trying to relentlessly just purge from my life. And I don't want to be one of those weird guys that doesn't ever watch a TV. I mean, I'd probably love in theory to not even own a TV, but maybe that's another podcast for a different episode. But I do think that television and just devices in general are a huge stopper for so many of us when it comes to living a healthier lifestyle. And we just get drawn into watching, I don't know if you've ever thought about what it is that, and I don't know about other cultures, but what it is that we in America have made the center point of our living room.
Yeah.
It's the television.
Right.
I mean, when like we're about to move into a house in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure when we arrange our furniture in the living room, we're going to put the couches and the different seats and stuff in accordance so that it all has a good view of the television.
Yes.
When did that become a thing?
Right.
I mean, anyway, that's a whole nother thing. I'm sorry.
Zach, here's a suggestion. So all of us enjoy an occasional mind relaxation of watching something enjoyable.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that you can do if you really want to make exercise a priority is only reward yourself.
That's good.
With television.
Yes.
When you've completed your exercise.
That's good.
If there are a few things that I want to do every day.
Yep.
I want to spend time with God, Bible reading and prayer.
Yep.
I want to read a book, a few pages.
Yep.
And I want to exercise. If I haven't done those three things, I don't think I should be wasting time watching whatever the latest Netflix binge is.
Yeah.
I mean, why not do something that builds my relational world, my mental world, or my spiritual life?
I love that, man. I mean, in other words, and this is really good for me. I'm just processing this. Television or whatever the distraction is for you. It might not be television. Maybe it's something else. For me, it's television. Make that the reward instead of the default.
Yeah.
And so like when you get home from work, your default routine's most likely going to be whatever is along the path of least resistance, which is watching television because it's the easier thing to do. Instead, make that the reward of the behavior that you want to add in your life.
Yeah.
And then when you sit down at the end of the day and you're watching the TV show that you wanted to watch, or, you're watching baseball when baseball comes back in a few weeks, it's because you know that you've spent 30 minutes exercising. I'm getting all of this, and I just want to recommend a resource to our listeners. Chris, is a book that we've both read, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that whole book, it's not just about like exercise and health, but really so many of his principles are so applicable to things regarding physical health. Yeah. And so I just want to reiterate that. Atomic Habits, James Clear.
Hey, it is one of my favorite reads of this year. You told me about it. I read it. I loved it. And by the way, before I read his book, Clear's book, I read Charles Duhigg,
The Power of Habit.
The Power of Habit. And in that book, he talks about habit as the result of cue, routine, and a reward. Cue, routine, reward.
That's exactly right.
So here's one of the things. When I read that, it clicked. My cue for exercising every day.
Yes.
My workout clothes are set out the night before.
That's good.
Shoes, shorts, it's set out the night before.
Yep.
That's the cue.
Sure.
That says when you get up, grab those. The routine is the exercise habit, and I've got a clearly stated routine in terms of my. I won't bore you with that.
Yeah.
And the reward. The reward is whatever you want it to be. It could be watching that television show on the weekend. You and I have talked about this. When we talk about eating healthy, hey, I love sliced pizza.
Sure.
So on the weekend, my reward might be an old school whole pie from sliced pizza. And can I eat the whole pie?
Absolutely.
You bet I can eat the whole pie. That's the reward. So build those things into your life.
Yeah. And I think that, for those of you listening right now, like one of the things that might be really helpful for all of us to do is to actually put thought to paper or thought to electronic document, like whatever it is that you use, because whenever we write it down, I think it becomes a lot more real for us.
Yep.
And so writing down clearly, like, what is your cue? What is your hoped routine, and then give yourself a reward. Like one of my goals this year is that I wanted to read 25 books in the year of 2020. And I have a specific reward for that. Whenever I meet that goal, I want to buy 25 books for like my friends and family. And so
that's cool.
Right now, like we're in July, I've read 22 books this year. Like I'm definitely going to hit that goal, but one of the driving points the whole time is that reward of being able to bless my friends and family with books. And it's the same thing with, physical fitness. And when we're talking about exercise, I just want to reiterate, that doesn't mean gym. I mean, we talked a little bit before, like when we came on and started recording, that this could just be going outside and working in the yard. Or, it could be like going to Oak Mountain State Park and going for a hike, or going kayaking, or like think about something that you're uniquely passionate about, and then like just make that like your thing and just go do that, and you'll enjoy life so much more. And this is a perfect time to make those changes. So exercise routinely. And then the last thing that we'll talk about in this episode is rest appropriately.
Yeah, in a way that reveals your deep trust and faith in God. That includes sleep and Sabbath. And Zach, we won't say much here. I will tell you, of all of these, this is a challenge for me. Sleep. Sleep and Sabbath. And I've got to grow in that ability. The scripture says he gives sleep to those he loves. And Psalm 127 verse 2 says, it's in vain that you rise up early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for God grants sleep to those he loves. And there's lots of study on how much sleep a healthy person requires, and it varies from person to person. I do believe that I'm wired not to require a lot of sleep. My wife is very different than myself. She's built to require more sleep than myself. You need to find what that circadian rhythm is for you, and you need to adjust accordingly. But let me tell you what's not up to us. And this is the thing that God keeps pounding me with, and it's Sabbath. It's that everybody needs a day off.
Yeah.
We need a day when we do not work. And as you reminded us on last episode that we talked about this kind of stuff, this isn't a suggestion.
Yeah.
It is a command.
Yeah.
It's
Made it
one
in
of
the
the
top
big
10.
10. Yeah. Yeah. Take a day off. Honor God with a Sabbath. And that Sabbath is for rest. It's for worship. It's for recreation. It's for refreshment. Honor God with a day off. You'll be amazed by this fact. God can do more with 6.
That's right.
Than you're able to do with all 7.
That's good. Yeah.
So Zach, I really want to encourage people to pursue physical health during lockdown. And let me give people a cue, and then you can lead us through some closing questions, Zach. Let me give people a hint, not a cue, at the last 2. Because I really do believe there are people in the audience that need maybe just a preview of these. Trust God to set you free from any self-defeating habits and addictions.
Yes.
There are people who have a habit when it comes to sugar.
Yes.
They have a habit when it comes to some of the things that they're eating that are gradually signing them up for slavery. Or maybe it's even things that haven't gradually signed them up for slavery. Maybe it's some kind of over-the-counter medication or what have you. Trust God to set you free. And part of trusting God might be seeking help.
Absolutely.
So that you can gain freedom in those areas. Again, Scripture does say all things are permissible. Not all things are beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't sign up for slavery. The 5th thing I would briefly preview for people is this. Begin to believe God for healing.
Yes.
Maybe you've made some wrong choices in life in regards to your health. Ask God to begin healing you. Believe him to heal you. You know, one of the challenges you gave me, I was talking about an area of my body I wanted to improve.
Sure.
I have that chest over drawers disease. My chest is falling down over my drawers.
I've never heard that.
And I really wanted to improve definition in my chest. And you said do 100 push-ups every day.
That's right.
100 every day. So I began doing 100 push-ups every day. And some days I've hit, today already I'm at 155.
Yeah.
You know, and basically I don't do them all at once.
Sure.
Usually in increments of 25.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really interesting is I've noticed some pain in my right shoulder.
Uh-oh.
And sometimes when I walk, I'll notice some pain in my knees. You know, I take God's promises for healing really, really seriously.
Yeah.
And often when I'm exercising, I just pray, hey, Father, you know, I really believe that you meant what you said. Mm-hmm. When the psalmist said he forgives all your sins, he heals all your diseases. Mm-hmm. So I trust you for healing in the shoulder.
Yeah.
I trust you for healing in these knees. Mm-hmm. And Zach, I want to encourage our audience. Maybe your battle is high blood pressure. Maybe it's type 2 diabetes. Maybe it's any number of things. Begin to trust God for healing in those areas of your life. I don't think we work on health and God gives us healing as a reward.
Sure.
I think healing is all about his grace.
Yes.
But I think when we're working on health, it does honor the extraordinary grace he's given. I never want to make this a works reward kind of thing from God. God's gifts are all about his extravagant grace.
Yes.
But I do believe while we claim those promises, let's do these things that can lead. Close us out with some questions, Zach.
Yeah, that's some really good stuff there. And today we've just been talking about the importance of our physical health and how it affects not only our bodies, but also our minds, our emotions, our relationships with God if you're a Christian. And so one of the things I just want to hit before I hit these questions is just to reiterate that it's not too late. I mean, wherever you find yourself, and I mean, if you're super convicted listening to this, then I'd say that's probably a good thing that you've listened to this.
Yeah.
And that you can take some steps forward. And so here are just a few questions for you to reflect on as we close up our time together today. And the first question is, and these are just going to be like sort of a barometer for you. But the first question is, am I always complaining about a lack of energy? And if you are, then that might be an indication that some of the things we've talked about today could be put in place for you. Second question, am I always tired and fatigued? Again, I know that I feel this whenever my diet gets a little out of sorts. The third question, what opportunities or events have I had to say no to because of poor choices I've made when it comes to my health? And am I ready to do something about it?
Wow.
Yeah, that's the third question. The fourth question that we want to ask you, just to spend some time reflecting on, and none of these questions are meant to make you feel any sort of shame or anything, but the fourth question is, do I pay attention to what I eat, how I exercise, and how much sleep I could get? If you don't, then I want to encourage you, whether it's starting to journal what you eat, or whether it's getting an accountability partner for exercise, or whether it's setting your alarm clock to automatically start a particular time, monitor those things. And then another question, do I have a plan for my physical health, an eating plan, an exercise plan? Am I totally ignoring my physical health? And then the last question, Chris, is when's the last time I had a physical?
Yeah. Just do that inventory. Go through that list of questions and see where you're at on the spectrum. Thanks so much for joining me today, Zach, to talk about all of this.
Thanks for having me.
I really pray that folks who have listened have gotten some information that they can take action with. And I want to encourage everyone, don't miss next week, because this week we've talked about physical health. Next week, we're going to do a deep dive. We may even have to divide it into 2 episodes with Dr. Deanna Paulk, and she's going to talk to us about mental and emotional health in a COVID-19 world. It's going to be a fascinating conversation, so I look forward to you joining us next week. Thanks, Zach. Thank you for listening. Have a great week. This has been the Real Faith Podcast with Chris Goins. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.